It was 2 nights after the disappearance of Mr. Skinner that the pod-born doctor was out late near Hankey, driving in his buggy. He had been up all night, assisting another undistinguished citizen into this curious world of ours, and his task was accomplished. He was driving homeward in a drowsy mood. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the waning moon was rising. The summer night had gone cold, and there was a low-lying whitish mist that made things indistinct. He was quite alone, for his coachman was ill in bed, and there was nothing to be seen on either hand but a drifting mystery of hedge, running athwart the yellow glare of his lamps, and nothing to hear but the clitter-clatter of his horses, and the grid and the hedge echo of his wheels. His horse was trustworthy as himself, and one does not wonder that he dozed. You know that intermittent drowsing as one sits, the drooping of the head, the nodding to the rhythm of the wheels, then chin across the breast, and at once sudden start up again. Pitter-patter, what was that? It seemed to the doctor he had heard a thin, shrill squeal close at hand. For a moment, he was quite awake. He said a word of undisturbed rebuke to his horse and looked about him. He tried to persuade himself that he had heard the distant squeal of a fox, or perhaps a young rabbit gripped by a ferret. Pitter-patter, swish. What was that? He felt he was getting fanciful. He shook his shoulders and told his horse to get on. He listened and heard nothing. Or was it nothing? He had the queerest impression that something had just peeped over the hedge at him. A queer big head with round ears. He peered hard, but he could see nothing. "Nonsense," said he. He sat up with an idea that he had dropped into a nightmare, gave his horse the slightest touch of the whip, and spoke to it, and peered again over the hedge. The glare of his lamp, however, together with the mist, rendered things indistinct, and he could distinguish nothing. It came into his head, he says, that there could be nothing there, because if there was, his horse would have shied at it. Yet for all that, his senses remained nervously awake. Then he heard quite distinctly a soft pattering of feet in pursuit along the road. He would not believe his ears about that. He could not look around, for the road had a sinuous curve just there. He whipped up his horse and glanced sideways again, and then he saw quite distinctly, where a ray from his lamp leapt a low switch of head, the curved back of some big animal. He couldn't tell what, going along in quick, convulsive leaps. He thought of the old tales of witchcraft. The thing was so utterly unlike any animal he knew, and he tightened his hold on the reins for fear of his horse. Educated man as he was, he asked himself if this could be something that his horse could not see. A head drawing near in silhouette against the rising moon was the outline of the little hamlet of Hankey, comforting, though it showed never a light. And he cracked his whip again, spoke again, and then in a flash, the rats were at him. He had passed a gate, and as he did so, the foremost rat came leaping over into the road. the thing sprang upon him out of vagueness into the utmost clearness. The sharp, eager, round-eared face, the long body exaggerated by its movement, and what particularly struck him, the pink-webbed forefeet of the beast. What must have made it more horrible to him at the time was that he had no idea the thing was any created beast he knew. He did not recognize it as a rat because of its size. His horse gave a bound as the thing dropped into the road beside him. The little lane woke into a tumult at the report of the whip and the doctor's shout. The whole thing went suddenly fast. Rattle, clatter, clash, clatter. The doctor, one gatherer, stood up, shouted to his horse, and slashed with all his strength. The rat winced and swerved most reassuringly at his blow. In the glare of the lamp, he could see the furrow under the lash, and he slashed again and again, heedless and unaware of the second pursuer that gained upon his offside. He let the reins go and glanced back to discover the third rat in pursuit behind. His horse bounded forward. The buggy leapt high at a rut. For frantic minutes, perhaps everything seemed to be going in leaps and bounds. It was sheer good luck that the horse came down in hanky, and not either before or after the houses had been passed. No one knows how the horse came down, whether it stumbled or whether the rat on the offside really got home with one of those slashing down strokes of the teeth. And the doctor never discovered that he himself was bitten. Much less did he discover when the bite occurred, though bitten he was, and badly. A long slash, like the slash of a double tomahawk, that had cut two parallel ribbons of flesh from his left shoulder. He was standing up in his buggy at one moment, and in the next he had leapt to the ground, with his ankle, though he did not know it, badly sprained, and he was cutting furiously at the third rat that was flying directly at him. He scarcely remembers the leap that he must have made over the top of the wheel of the buggy as it came over. So obliteratingly hot and swift did his impressions rush upon him. I think myself the horse reared up with the rat biting again at his throat and fell sideways and carried the whole affair over, and that the doctor sprang, as it were, instinctively. As the buggy came down, the receiver of the lamp smashed, and suddenly poured a flare of blazing oil, a thud of white flame into the struggle. That was the first thing the bookmaker saw. He had heard the clatter of the doctor's approach, and, though the doctor's memory has nothing of this, wild shouting. He had got out of bed hastily, and as he did so came the terrific smash, and up shot the glare outside his rising blind. It was brighter than day, he says. He stood blind, cord in hand, and stared out of the window at a nightmare transformation out of the familiar road before him. The black figure of the doctor, with its whirling whip, danced out against the flame. The horse kicked indistinctly, half hidden by the blade with a rat at its throat. In the obscurity, against the churchyard wall, the eyes of a second monster shone wickedly. Another, a mere dreadful blackness, with red-lit eyes and flesh-colored hands, clutched unsteadily on the wall coping to which it had leapt at the flash of the exploding lamp. You know the keen face of a rat, those two sharp teeth, those pitiless eyes, seemed magnified to near 6 times its linear dimension, and still more magnified by the darkness and amazement and the leaping fancies of a fitful blaze. It must have been an ill sight for the brick maker. Then the doctor had grasped the opportunity, that momentary respite that the flare afforded, and was out of the brickmaker's sight. Below, battering at the door with the butt of his whip. The brickmaker would not let him in until he had got a light. There are those who have blamed the man for that, but until I know my own courage better, I hesitate to join their number. The doctor yelled and hammered. The brickmaker said he was weeping with terror when at last the door was opened. Bolt, the doctor said, bolt. He could not say bolt the door. He tried to help and it was of no service. The brickmaker fastened the door and the doctor had to sit on the chair beside the clock for a space before he could go upstairs. I don't know what they are, he repeated several times. I don't know what they are, with a high note on the R. The brickmaker would have got him whiskey, but the doctor would not be left alone with nothing but a flickering light just then. It was long before the brickmaker could get him to go upstairs. And when the fire was out, the giant rats came back and took the dead horse, dragged it across the churchyard into the brick field, and ate at it until dawn, none even then daring to disturb them.